following is an instructional video about how to scavenge during the Apocalypse card game. It's assumed that you understand the general rules of the game. If you have no experience with Apocalypse, please watch our How to Play video before watching this one. A scavenging location is played from your hand during your occupation phase. Every scavenging location has a sections attribute. Take this number of cards from the bottom of your discard pile and stack them, face down, next to the scavenging location. You must have enough discards to cover all the sections if you want to play the location. When you play the scavenging location, it becomes the one location you're occupying this turn. When you have multiple locations on the board, you can move your characters around. You may only move characters to your occupied location. You're not allowed to play any survivors or their attachments from your hand to a scavenging location. However, you can play wild cards. Wild cards are played during your occupation phase and must relate to your occupied location. The Quick and Easy card allows a biker to clear one extra section while scavenging. We'll talk about that in a minute, but for now let's just say we're playing it with Persephone Clark. After a wild card is played, it goes to the discard pile. When your occupation is over, you move into the scavenging phase. Scavenging comes before combat. Unless there are raiders at the location, and we'll talk about that in a minute, your survivors each clear one section, which means they flip cards off the top of the stack you made when you played the location. Scavenging during your scavenging phase occurs even if you didn't occupy the scavenging location. Persephone has a flashlight attached, which allows her to clear one extra section. That means she flips 2 cards. We also played that wild card with her earlier, so she's going to flip 3 cards this turn. If a cleared section happens to be a survivor, or an attachment that can be played on a survivor at that location, you can immediately put it into play there. Persephone discovers a biker. He goes right into play at the location. The next time you scavenge, he'll clear a section as well. The unplayed cards go to the discard pile. Your opponent can occupy your scavenging locations too. He or she can send raiders to prevent you from completing your scavenging there. During your opponent's combat phase, those raiders will attack. Just like when attacking a stronghold, raiders are going to attack access points. In this example, the raiders split up to attack all 3 access points. Defending at a scavenging location is a little different from defending in a stronghold. The raiders can't damage the scavenging location, but they can prevent you from clearing sections. As the defender, you have 2 options. If there are characters that you want to leave out of the battle, you must defend at every access point, as pictured here. However, you can choose not to engage at every access point by sending all of your survivors into battle. Combat is resolved engagement by engagement the same way it is at a stronghold. Remember that 2-fold zombies, when killed, are recycled to the bottom of the deck. After combat, all of the surviving characters remain at the scavenging location. Because the Juggernaut survived, you're not going to be able to clear sections at this location next turn. Your opponent can use his or her turns to keep up the attack, putting more and more raiders there, or change the focus by occupying somewhere else. Once the danger is gone, though, you can resume scavenging. In our example, there are still 6 cards in the section stack. With 4 survivors and a flashlight, you can only clear 5 of them in a turn. On your turn, you can decide to occupy the scavenging location again and move another survivor there. Your survivors and raiders can move all over the table depending on how many locations are in play. Characters that are moving can move from anywhere to your occupied location. Remember that survivors may only move to your locations and raiders may only move to opponents' locations. With the extra survivor, you're able to clear the remaining sections and complete the location. Every scavenging location has text that tells you what to do when you complete it. The supermarket says to recover 10 resources and stockpile up to 3. Without looking, count off the specified number of recovered resources, 10 in this example, from the bottom of your discard pile. Whenever any text in the game refers to recovery, it comes from the bottom of your discard pile, unless it specifically names a card or a type of card. In order to stockpile, you can take cards from your recovered stack and put them under your stronghold. The supermarket lets you take up to 3. Scavenging locations in earlier versions of the game do not specify how many cards you can stockpile. If you are playing those earlier versions, you can refer to the number of access points to determine how many cards you can stockpile. If a scavenging location does not allow you to recover cards, you may not stockpile cards. During consumption, stockpiled cards are worth 2 resources. If the number of cards in your stockpile ever matches or exceeds your stronghold's capacity, you immediately win the game. The remaining recovered cards are placed underneath your deck. Your survivors return to your stronghold, and the scavenging location is placed in the discard pile. Scavenging is an essential part of the apocalypse. It keeps your deck healthy and can be a viable winning strategy if you stockpile correctly. Scavenging adds depth to the game. As you expand the play area, however, the strategies become more numerous and more difficult to manage for both you and your opponent. Build your decks with your strategy in mind and make sure to take control of the game early. If you give that power to your opponent, then you will never survive the apocalypse.